So alhamdulillah, guys, obviously for today's video, we're going to be reacting and breaking down a lot of things. And the guest that I have for today, there's no need to introduce Brother Baz. And Brother Baz, how you been?
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Yeah, I definitely don't need an introduction because I don't want an introduction, and all praise belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Rabbil Alameen.
Alhamdulillah. And Brother Baz, we're going to be talking about a thing that a lot of people they have, their opinions on it. And this is the type of thing that you'll find views from different perspectives. I mean, people are going to say their thing about this, right? No doubt. And it's about Islamophobia. Due to the recent events that's been happening in Toronto, happening in Canada, right? With obviously in London, you probably know what happened. And I actually had a video. I went there, and just the you can't imagine these things happening, but they're happening, right? And what
Mhm.
happened also in Scarborough with the mosque, two individuals decided to break into a mosque, and obviously, thank God, they were arrested. But these things are increasing, and now the topic of discussion has been about Islamophobia, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're Muslim or not, people are talking about this. So for today's video, we're going to be seeing multiple things, and we're going to be breaking it down. And before we go, do you have anything to say?
I got a couple things to say. I mean, I know, look, listen, if there's some non-Muslims who are tuning in right now and they're like, you know what, Islamophobia doesn't exist, or this was not a terrorist attack, or something along those lines. Listen, I'm willing to listen to what they have to say because even among the Muslim community, even among the Muslim community, there are some voices that are critical of the term Islamophobia
Mm-hmm.
and the term terrorism. However, they come from a different perspective than what our non-Muslim fellow citizens are coming from. So one perspective is like, no, there's no hatred against Islam in Canada. And you Muslims are just complaining, you're trying to make yourselves out to be the victim, and the only terrorists are Muslims. That's what some people say.
Mm-hmm.
That obviously, that line of thinking, I think, is bogus, but we can get more into that later, inshallah, because I'd like
Inshallah.
to
And
expand on it.
today, so right now we're gonna be first of all, this article by Toronto Star is actually talking about Canada's Islamophobia problem, and they're saying it's real. And I mean, the description of the title, they say it's time that we deal with it. And just by the title, before we go into the whole article and everything, what do you think about just the headline?
Toronto Star, sometimes it has some good articles. Vice, sometimes decent press. TRT, Al Jazeera is the press that I usually read. But I think you have an interesting point. You're alluding to an interesting point where, when it came to the Michael Bibeau attack, AKA the Parliament attack in Ottawa, when it comes to Muslims, it's usually presented in a different way. We can
Mhm.
just look at the history for the last 20 years, and even take into consideration in the way that the non-Muslims are talked about.
So now, as we see going into the article, there's comments, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of Canadians that are going to voice their opinions upon it, right?
Yeah. I
So,
want to hear your thoughts. By the way,
so
good digging, bro, on this, because this is something that is very. I mean, this is first of all, it's a very creative idea, and I myself, I've responded to these comments, and I noticed that when you see that one, that one comment has 13 likes. I remember I responded once, and my comment had just a number of likes, and like,
Mhm.
because the reason is, you at the end of the day, a lot of these comments are coming from people who don't live in metropolitan cities. They don't have access to Muslims and Islam. They may not have Muslim friends, and it's just hard to debate with them because they're coming from a completely different perspective. With all due respect, it's a lot of times, unfortunately, based on ignorance. They
Yeah,
just don't know Muslims or Islam well,
yeah,
or they just read.
exactly,
They
exactly.
rely on the internet for their information when it comes to
And
Islam.
I would say some of these people, they may be genuine, they may be real, they may have
Yeah,
a sense of they want to unite, but I mean, the way you're going about it, the way you come off sometimes seems like you're not taking into consideration what the other person values and he believes in and his life, the way of his life. Their concept of unity is everybody got to talk the same, look the same, act the same. I get it. You have to act the
assimilate.
same, unite based upon rules, no doubt. I don't have hair as African Americans or our black brothers and sisters have, right? So therefore, I won't be using those combs and those hair products because I don't have that type of hair. And I vice versa, I understand with the person that has silky hair. So this is a matter of accepting each other's differences, right?
Mhm.
But when people talk about united, they just want to they refer to everybody just has to be the same. It's
Yeah.
uniformity.
The goal of this is not to put anybody down or mock anybody, because some of these comments I'm sure are going to be pretty dumb,
Yeah.
right? Even if those who still want to adamantly disagree with me, no problem. They're still
No
my
problem.
neighbors. They're still my fellow citizens. My faith teaches me to respect our neighbors, so I see them all as my neighbor.
The first comment I wanted to show you, it's from a person named obviously we have the names here and we're doing this for a reason. The reason why I'm going to include their names, you publicly decide to comment on a public post so therefore I have the right to now even break down that comment you made. I have the right to do that because why did you publicly post it, right? Do you agree with me?
Mm-hmm.
So Mike is saying you cannot address Islamophobia without addressing Muslim silence in the face of brutal and heinous acts of terrorism that have killed millions in the name of Islam over the past 20 years. In the past month alone, we have seen thousands of Muslims in the streets of Canadian cities attacking Jews and chanting the most vile things about them and the democratic state of Israel. And today they want to stop Islamophobia. So what do you think about the comment?
Oh man, where do I begin? I don't know where to start. Oh man. Okay, so yeah, I'll just go one by one. I mean, heinous acts of terrorism that have killed millions in the name of Islam over the past 20 years.
I mean, what's the
hell is
basis?
what the hell is he talking about? That statistic is completely inaccurate. I mean, have been more people killed alone in the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq, right? And by the we all know who. So I mean, it's just hilarious that he would say this, right? What the media is good at, Mike Smith, if you're listening to this, may God guide you, and I hope I can take you out for a coffee one day and have this discussion.
No, most definitely.
What the media is good at is taking one incident by Muslims, putting it under the microscope, and then just inflating that, making obviously.
Yeah.
By the way, let me be clear about the Islamic position is that we are completely against any Muslim taking the law into their own hands. That's completely unacceptable. It's not allowed in Islam. But for the record, when a Muslim man kills somebody and when a Christian man kills somebody, the two are not weighed the same in the media's eyes, frankly speaking.
Yeah.
And there's actually been studies on this. Yeah, go ahead.
And even Mike, Mike, obviously we believe in the Prophet Muhammad to be the final truthful messenger of God, just as we believe in all the messengers, Mike, such as Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, and Jesus. And the Prophet Muhammad, Mike, he has he said something which is very, I feel like, powerful and is relatable. I mean, you may be saying something, but he said, help your brother when he's oppressed and help your brother when he's oppressors. The companions of the Prophet of God, they understood what he meant by help your brother when he's oppressed, but they did not understand what he meant by help your brother when he's an oppressor. And the Prophet informed them, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that informing him on what he's doing is wrong. He's oppressing. So at the end of the day, you can see the way you're commenting and the way you're putting it out there, Mike, is like, we all are with that, even if that's happening, which there is no basis of that which you said.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, look at the Muslims in Bosnia, right? How many years ago, Brother Basil, they were massacred? What was the sin? What's the sin they committed? Okay, fine. You want to now justify with your wrong ideologies that the adults, they did something. What about the kids? What about the babies? What about the toddlers? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They all were just massacred.
Yeah.
And that's continuing, so you got to be just. You got to be. I feel like he has to be, just when he's making a comment. He can't. He clearly can tell, like, he let.
Yeah. I mean, everyone can point fingers, right? You're people to this. You're people to this. People tend to empathize more or sympathize more with when their own people are killed, right? Which is interesting. And the other thing is that in his second paragraph is also really funny because he's been obviously seeing some protests exaggerated, right? Canadians, streets of Canadian cities attacking Jews. I think there was like one or two fights that I saw, and in fact, people broke down those fights and they were instigated by the pro-Israeli side a lot of the time. So I'm not denying that some of our youth, can act immature or whatnot, but
that's not Islam.
If Mike, I hope Mike actually gets a chance to visit the occupied territories, occupied Palestine, because the whole region is occupied. I hope he gets a chance.
Hopefully, even Mike can even dive in.
See
And no,
so
the
that he
most
can actually
important,
see how democratic Israel,
yeah,
quote
and
unquote,
not even
is.
that. The most important thing, I wish Mike can even understand the difference between Islam and Muslims. Not every
Yeah,
Muslim represents Islam. Mike, you
yeah,
probably know from the Crusaders. You probably know from the people that enslaved the black people, and y'all used the Bible to justify slavery, taking out the stories of Adam, Joseph, alayhi salatu wasalam, and then even creating a separate Bible for the African Americans in America, calling it the Negro Bible. You guys know this, and you
yeah.
witnessed to this.
That's deep.
So
Yeah,
we don't say all Christians are like that or are supporting that. We know that this is something fundamentally not correct. So you
yeah.
have to be just, Mike. This is by John Murray, and what he says is when one group is vying uh, for preference, the social order becomes out of balance and problems ensue. Right. So why is Muslims special? I love that. I love that. What about the prejudice towards other minority groups? Example: anti-black racism, anti-Semitism, anti-white privilege, anti-Asian. And whatever he mentions, all are alive and well in Canada. Oh, look at John! Look at John go. What do you think
Yeah.
about what John says at the end,
Yeah.
especially?
It's funny because he's like speaking. He's like the representative for all these ethnicities, right? He's just be like, no, you know what? Go to work, guys. We're taking care of everybody. And I
Anti-white
guess
privilege.
yeah, I don't understand why it infuriates him so much that Muslims are getting 1% of sympathy or empathy in the media again. And just to be clear, from my position at least, I do not want any sympathy or empathy from anyone.
Yeah,
I don't think our community does. I don't think knowing the victims, and may Allah bless them, because we know that they used to go to the masjid regularly and their children went to Islamic school. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala
I
give them
mean,
and their family Jannatul Firdaus al-A'la,
I
and
mean,
make their son Fayaz Afzal an alim, a scholar, a mujaddid, a
I mean,
scientist, an entrepreneur, a very successful Muslim, so he can combat these kinds of sentiments and give dawah, inshallah, for the
mm,
Sufis to
I
be the
mean,
best. But basically, John Murray, may Allah guide him as well. I'd love to take him out for a coffee or Tim Hortons or whatever he's a fan of. Tim Hortons does not sponsor this video, but yeah, may Allah guide him. What
I
do you
mean,
think, bro?
John, he tried to obviously, I guess I get it. He's coming from a place, but I mean, it comes off very, careless. I feel like this is very reckless of him to comment this, not saying especially at the end when he says all are alive and well in Canada. He's just looking at things from his point of view, and he's not looking at things from the understanding of the point. He's not being sympathetic or empathetic towards other human beings.
And especially our indigenous community,
Yeah.
right?
So John is probably chilling. He's enjoying fishing on the weekends. I get it. I'm not saying it's wrong. He's enjoying his life, but then again, in this comment, it doesn't feel like he's really acknowledging or even sympathizing or empathizing with the other people. That's what I feel.
Regardless of these comments, the vast majority of Canadians are still very much balanced. And I will also say that even some of the imams on Facebook who are very conservative in Canada, they were like, yeah, my neighbor, reached out to me. They sent me cards. They sent me letters. I've seen Canadians crying as well in London, Ontario, over this issue. So again, their heart is there, mashallah. May Allah guide them.
I
And
mean,
I pray we can reciprocate by having proper open houses, by
mhm,
having proper dialogue, by even being
100%.
the neighbors that we are supposed to be, like Rasulullah SAW that demonstrated,
Sallallahu
like our sunnah, as per
Exactly.
demonstrated in our sunnah, inshallah. That's my vision for Canada, inshallah ta'ala, that we can be the best neighbors, inshallah.
I mean,
And then inshallah we can give dawah across Canada. My goal, inshallah, vision, I'm sorry to put this out here, and I hope I can do this with you, brother Saad, one day. We
I mean,
visit every single Canadian city with a camera, and we do a Canada wide road trip, bro. Might be 5 years from now, maybe 10 years, I don't know. But we do it, bro, and we give dawah to every single Canadian, or not every single Canadian, but in every single town, inshallah, right? So some of these people may have never met Muslims. They don't have, and I want to break that stereotype. I want to break build
mhm.
that bridge, inshallah.
The third comment we're gonna go to is from Gladys Hills, right? I mean, I'm gonna just say Gladys. So now she says, we, meaning Canadian citizens, need to deal with Islamophobia while the government needs to stop with their devised racist words and actions towards Canadians. They don't want us working tandem in peace with one another. They sow racism and confusion. A white kid is a terrorist, but not a brown one for mowing down people in Toronto. Churches are closed, but mosques are open. What is the agenda? The next step here, promoted by the media. What do you think about this?
Oh man, I didn't want to. Man, this puts me in a really tough position. I
Mhm.
actually agree with the first part of her comment because it's hinting towards a little bit of systematic racism, even though she probably did not intend that, even though she probably intended to say something else. And I think that even though Gladys probably didn't intend that, it definitely something that is there. Feel free to disagree with me on that.
No,
Not
keep going.
everything
Yeah, I
I say
agree.
is correct, by the way. So for those listening to me, nothing I say is I could be wrong, of course.
No, I definitely agree, but I just feel like when she says churches are closed, the mosques are open. I mean, you know, uh, even the churches, right? The sex defer, right? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what church you're talking about, but there are churches open, and mosques. You have to understand, Glady, that Muslims we pray 5 times a day.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Warm, winter, whatever the case may be, fall, summer does not matter,
Yeah, she probably
right?
completely missed it. That's a great point. She probably missed
Yes,
that. Yeah.
and also if you do or have seen, mosques have also changed their protocols with COVID. There's spacing. There's a limitation of people. If the mosque is full, then the other people they have to probably pray at home or whatever the case may be. So, Gladi, I don't know what you're trying to point to, but I get it. There is some good in her. I just feel like she's ignorant. What do you think about that?
Yeah. The line, "A white kid is a terrorist, but not a brown one for mowing down people in Toronto." You know what?
Mhm.
You know what I'm scared of? I'm scared she still thinks the van attack in Toronto that happened a couple of years ago by the incel individual. Remember that?
Yes.
The guy who's part of an incel group, right?
Mhm,
I
mhm.
bet you she probably is referring to that guy. She thinks he was Muslim. That's like common knowledge now that he was not Muslim. So I hope that's not what she was referring to. But it seems like that's
Yep.
what she might have been referring to. Unfortunately, Nathaniel is the perpetrator. He's the one who's guilty. He's the one who should be facing multiple life sentences. But we wouldn't
Yes.
want to target it. We would not want to target his people. We wouldn't want to target people with even conservative ideologies. We would not want to target people, his family. They're innocent, and that's what happens to Muslims. We know this firsthand. So
Mhm.
so 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 there is, FYI, from Muslim academics of others have actually been against the use of this term terrorism in the first place. However, I will say that a lot of Muslims are using it. Even myself, we use it like I'll say, for instance, Israel is a terrorist state. They've committed terrorist atrocities, just to get the point across, because that term has a certain meaning today. So that's just wanted to
Mhm.
say that.
And I just want to now jump into the next comment by Juan. He says Islamophobia as well as anti-Semitism are old Catholic traditions going way back to early European Middle Ages. What do you think? Do you think he's just speaking out of the blue, or do you think he's onto something?
What the hell is Juan talking about here? Islamophobia as well as our old Catholic traditions? What the?
You know,
He completely lost me.
I'll tell Juan or Juan that sometimes it's good to drop the smoke. I don't know. All
How,
right.
how, how, how Juan isn't smoking anything? That's why.
Oh, hopefully. And now we got Ronnie McDonald. I'm joking. Ron McDonald, right? He says, "Why is an imam preaching hatred towards Jews?
Oh, he
Not a
caught it. You know
problem."
what, Saad? He caught us again, bro. Every time, I
Dude,
guess
this
we
guy,
should just
how does
confess.
he know this?
Every time we walk into a mosque, the first thing they do, they just be like, the Jews, the Jews.
Jews.
Like,
You know what? You want to do Jews? Did he find that? I think he could be preaching hatred towards Jews, but not
yeah,
towards.
yes. Well, I like juice personally.
Yeah, but
Juice,
like, 'cause,
apple juice, orange
sometimes it may
juice.
not be the best thing.
Yeah, and then for the record, you know what? I personally have spoken to, like, just over digitally, Independent Jewish Voices of Canada. They're a great organization. May Allah guide them to Islam.
I
They're one of
mean,
the organizations here in Canada that speaks against Israel. We also have, although I understand he's a liberal rabbi, we have a liberal rabbi here in Canada who's actually speaks against Zionism. We also have the Nutere Karta, is another Jewish group, have Hasidic Jews that
mm,
actually calls out Israel for their crimes. So Alhamdulillah, we don't have any issues with Jews. In fact, they are Ahlul Kitab. We can eat from their meat. We can marry from their women. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So no issues there. And I pray, inshallah, one day we can go to Bathurst Street here in Toronto with our dawah team. We can give dawah to some of
and
the Jews, inshallah.
our thing is just similar to what some Christians that actually know about Christianity they disagree on. We disagree on him they claiming certain prophets weren't prophets of God. We disagree with them with they blaspheming certain attributes to God, right? So we
Absolutely,
disagree
yeah,
with
you're
that, and
absolutely
we
right.
highly disagree, and we talk on words. But if they will come, like how Allah tells the Prophet ﷺ in the Quran in Surah Ma'idah, that,
So,
oh Muhammad, if they come to you, then judge between them in justice.
SubhanAllah.
But if
One
you
of
do
the
not,
I know we were going to discuss this in another episode. I'm so sorry.
yes,
I'm getting excited here, but one of the Prophet's wives was ethnically Jewish. Obviously, she accepted Islam. One of my friends here in Mississauga as well too. Alhamdulillah, he converted from
alhamdulillah.
Judaism to Islam. Um, there's so many points. Just the points you mentioned as well.
But
I
it's a
remember going to Bathurst
the
Street.
main thing.
I think I ate a shawarma or something like that. I met a Hasidic Jew. Believe this. I met a Hasidic Jew who was in charge of helping with the kosher meat. He actually was having doubts in his faith, and I told him you should go and read Surah Al-Baqarah, the second chapter of the Quran. Read the first and second chapter. I told him because it's
Allah
all about
keeps
Moses.
reminding the
It's all
children
about
of
Moses.
Israel. Allah keeps reminding the children of Israel, oh children of Israel, remember my favors upon you. Remember my
Subhanallah.
favors upon you. Remember this. Allah really showered these people with mercy, but they kept turning away, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kept coming back with mercy. So there's no hatred. There's no hatred.
Yeah, and the Arabs are Semitic people. Like they are by definition Semitic people, so they can't be anti-Semitic.
Yes, exactly.
But let me ask you a question, Azad. Have you ever
Yo,
seen an imam preaching hatred against Jews? Just for the record, like, have you ever seen an imam preaching
define
something?
the term hatred. Do you think, okay, we can be disagreeing, because just like how homosexuals, they do not like heterosexuals and they disagree on the lifestyle of heterosexuals, same thing we will disagree upon, but we won't say go, they don't. I'll be honest, okay, no matter how much I disagree with homosexuals on probably 1,000 of things, out of one I'll agree with. But they also, when they preach hate or whatever they preach, whatever they want to preach, they don't say go beat up these heterosexuals when you see them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
They just disagree with their
no one can take
lifestyle.
the law into their own hands. Yeah,
Yes. So same thing. We disagree with them on those bases, but we don't say go beat them up, go, rip their braids out, or punch them on the face.
God
No.
forbid. Yeah, no, of course, no, we don't do.
So so
No Muslim is allowed to take even like we have even our Sharia. We have an amana, right? There's many perspectives, by the way, many different opinions. But one opinion that I've heard is we have an amana with this
yeah,
country. We're not allowed to take the law into our own hands.
exactly.
And for the record, maybe he's talking about, because I have seen some imams quote hadith, right, or ayat, and they're talking about Bani Israel. They're talking about the Jews, but we're not gonna. First of all, we're not gonna apologize for those hadith or ayat. We're very proud of those hadith and ayat, and he just needs to understand the context. That's the key. And number two is look how Muslims treated Jews actually historically.
Yes.
Anyways,
when he conquered
this is
Jerusalem.
a huge topic. We could just honestly debunk this topic for an hour. And I pray, inshallah, one day. I think the best way to do it is we need to actually have more conversations with Jews here in Toronto and actually record them. That's the best way to do it.
And I think, with Ron as well, we can probably go for a coffee one day. Why not?
Yes, but not a place that's owned by Zionists. Well, as long as it's not Zionist coffee, we'll go.
Ron, sorry about that, man.
Unfortunately, this Israeli-Palestine discussion is a very deep topic, and Rebel Media, who's actually head office here in Canada, they're actually pushing a lot of this, and unfortunately, people fall for that kind of narrative. But a lot of people align with Israel for religious and ideological reasons. Vice News and others have done a documentary on this because some Christians actually believe that by supporting Israel, Jesus will come back, and that's why, unfortunately, that's why they actually ally. But what they don't admit, and that to any Christians, if you're listening to this, how can you sell out? Because what some Zionists say about Isa alayhi salam, how they insult Maryam alayhi salam, what they have said about Maryam alayhi salam is so I cannot even repeat. Like, it's hard for me to even think about those words. Right? I don't want to get into that right now, but it's horrendous.
Dania says Hamas, Islamic Jihad, ISIS, Hezbollah, Boko Haram, and Taliban are just a few of them.
Yeah, that's such a long. First of all, some of these groups don't like each other. none of the two. There's many different types of Taliban, okay, but for the most part, there is a violent faction of them that we don't agree with, that attacks civilians. Unfortunately, Hamas is a elected government in Palestine. Although again, even Muslims ourselves, some of the Muslims have themselves criticized them. You cannot just lump all these into one group. The other thing is, like I said, like of course, if you're gonna, I think it was in Barack Obama who said it. If you're gonna invade a country like Iraq, you're obviously gonna get a reaction. Unfortunately, you know, no country's just gonna sit on the side while you butcher their country and their women and their children and menfolk. So you're gonna get a reaction. Unfortunately, we people, you know, the largest protest in the UK happened, and I think it was in 2003, 2004. You know, protesting the invasion of the Iraq War, Tony Blair's invasion at the time. Nobody listened, but now obviously the US is starting to wake up to these kinds of things. I don't know, maybe not, but yeah. We kind of spoke about this before. I think this is where I'll end with, is that on this topic, that the RAND report. What is the RAND report? It was brought up by a number of scholars and du'at and websites. Islamonline was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And Sajid, our brother Sajid Leafham, sorry to drop names, but he made a really good video, a 5-minute video summarizing the whole RAND report. What the RAND report is an American think tank that works very closely with the Pentagon. And what they said is, you know, whenever a Muslim commits a crime, make sure to highlight it in the media, highlight it, demonize them, make sure it's affiliated with Islam, so that Muslims are like ashamed. They feel ashamed, even like of the notion of defending themselves, right? They feel ashamed. And the RAND report is really, you know, there's two. Again, the RAND is the name of the think tank. The reports that they published were Civil Democratic Islam, and then I think Moderate Islam as well. They have one on Moderate Islam, if I'm not mistaken. So it's really important for, in my opinion, every Muslim should read that, like at least glance at that report, or at least watch the video by Sajid Leafham on that, because
nobody has an irrational fear of Islam. We kind of tackled that already. The last is here by Chris. I mean, I think this is good. He says, please ditch the term Islamophobia. This will help greatly. I'm the discussion.
Yeah.
Or in the discussion. I guess that's what you mean.
Yeah, you know, you go ahead. What do you think?
So, okay, so why don't we ditch the term homophobia? Why don't we ditch the term? There's other phobias. Why don't we just ditch all of them, right?
Yeah.
You know? So why not? Why do you not want to use that? The reason why even homosexuals had rights and are starting to the rights are starting to increase, because there was a term where the media depicted them as the oppressed, and this is like something, you know, as humans we love the underdogs, right? So giving them that depiction of the underdog, and then, you know, going with that wave of supporting them, that's how, you know, now we see the term homophobia is actually a thing. Otherwise, if you open the old dictionaries, you won't even find that term.
To me, generally speaking, there's 3 ways to use the term Islamophobia.
Mm-hmm.
One way is to talk about, now, again, I agree, because I'd like to know more about the traditional Islamic opinion on this, because let me be frank, and listen, Todd, you and others might disagree with me, because I understand I have some unique opinions, okay, when it comes to Islamophobia specifically. So yes, I do use the term myself. However, anybody who's, first of all, one of the criticisms from the other side, the non-Muslim side, they say, don't use the term Islamophobia, you know, because we have the right to criticize Islam. And my response to that is, when have you seen us object, like having that objection? We don't have that objection. You're welcome to come to our dawah parks, come and debate us, come and let's have a discussion. You're more than welcome to ask questions or critique or complain about Islam. That's fine. But what typically when we're talking about Islamophobia, we're talking about systematic Islamophobia. We're talking about systematic Islamophobia, or we're talking about the hate and irrational fear of Islam and Muslims. So just for the record, and those who are listening, they can watch a clip by One Path Network with Dr. Shadi Al-Masri in the US, and he has a very short clip on Islamophobia. And he says one of the problems is the close relationship that the anti-Islamophobia movement has with the SJW/LGBTQ community. So what ends up happening is that they say, yes, we're going to fight Islamophobia. We're going to fight all types of hate and discrimination. And now we Muslims, we want you guys to speak
Mhm.
against transphobia discrimination, speak against bestiality discrimination, speak against all these kinds of strange things. And we're like, what?
Yeah,
We never signed up for this.
yeah, yeah.
So the anti-Islamophobia movement is, it's not always coming from an Islamic lens. That's number one for we Muslims need to know. From a grassroots top, people should not have fear of us. And I will say, you know what, we Muslims are partly to blame. Let me take full responsibility here, and some people might not even like this, but we are to blame because of the part of the Islamophobia. If you look at Surah 5, ayah number 67, read that. Surah number 5, ayah number 67, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the message, conveying the message, and Allah's promise to protect us. So I believe if we hide away from dawah, if we shy away from saying the truth, people will actually hate us even more. Because we
Mhm.
know of that hadith where, and again, astaghfirullah, I'm not paraphrasing this correctly, but so please everyone should look at the authentic hadith, where Rasulullah talks about we should not displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with at the expense of trying to please the people, right? That's so we need to focus on being real, being honest, saying the truth. Regardless of what, the Christians might not like our opinion about alcohol, but we should still speak the truth about it. That's just one small example, because we know that it's not good. If we really like this society, we should speak the truth. If we really care for our fellow Canadians, we should speak the truth. And we know that alcohol is not good for Canadians. We know it's not helping their society. It leads to domestic abuse. It leads to many other problems. So what's going to happen in the short term? They may have an issue with us. There might be a small bit of tension, but in the long term, Canadians will actually respect us more. What's happening, unfortunately, and again, I know we weren't going to critique the community, but I think this is important to be self-critical sometimes. Unfortunately, some community leaders, may Allah bless them, I know they have good
I mean,
intentions.
I mean,
We love them for the sake of Allah. They're our dear Muslim brothers and sisters. But unfortunately, there's sometimes they bend over backwards to try to please others, and they're kind of shy to say what Islam
the
is
truth.
position. What do you think, my bro?
No, and exactly, you hit it right on. Like, I mean, sometimes when you compromise, no, sometimes when you're trying to please people, you end up compromising your values, right? So there's not a thing that you become an oppressor and you step over people, obviously. But then again, you don't become such a weasel, a wimp, that you sacrifice your own values, the things you stand for. It's like Allah tells the Prophet ﷺ in Surah Qalam, in the pen, chapter pen, and he tells the Prophet ﷺ, do not compromise. They want you to compromise with them so that you may compromise with them. And I'll leave
Yeah.
it to rest there. And brother Basil, jazakallah khair for coming here. And thank you so much for even enlightening us with all of that which you enlightened us with. And if you any last things you wanted to say, it would be much appreciated.
I spoke a lot. But I'll say, listen, the way to tackle Islamophobia or anti-Muslim sentiment, we we have to be careful about playing the victim too much.
Yeah.
We should really have a dawah approach to this, education approach. If
Hmm.
people like Nathaniel Veltman were approached by Muslims, like invited to if he was invited to the mosque. Again, I'm not. Just let me just be clear. He's guilty. I believe he deserves a full life sentence or the harshest sentence available according to Canadian law. I mean, again, unfortunately, Canadian law is not always. I don't always obviously accept it. Unfortunately, I mean, we know it's not an Islamic system, so we know why the Quebec shooter unfortunately got 25 years. I'm sure all Muslims are aware of this. That's another big problem. I think it's also related to unfortunately secular liberal philosophy mixed with Islamophobia. So that guy got off very easy. At the age of 50 something, he's going to be out free. And this doesn't send the right message to people. So I pray, you know what? I feel like a lot of Canadians, they are losing faith in their own system. They're losing faith in secular liberalism, and some are even losing faith in Christianity. Some of them are going back to God as well. And I think this is
Mhm.
really a good time for dawah. My thing is, look, I don't want people to forgive me if I said anything in this episode that was Islamically incorrect. I'm sure I made some mistakes. I have no doubt about that. I apologize. But my approach is, we need to do this as a team, as a community. We need to tackle Islamophobia together, and the way to do that, I think, is going to be through dawah and education, inshallah,
I want
for,
to educate you.
and for
Barakallah
Muslims.
feek, my brother, and may Allah bless you. And Jazakallah khair, guys, for even tuning in. And hopefully, y'all check out the merch that's coming out. And if you guys haven't seen it, just see it for yourself. How beautiful is this? And you know, thank you guys so much. And Jazakallah khair, guys.
And Saad, I'm sorry for making this episode super long, but you know what, guys? Do subscribe to my brother's channel here. He's put in a lot of time and effort in, and I know I've done a lot in this episode, so I apologize.
No, no,
Uh,
I love this. And I know a lot of people, if they don't listen to it, they're gonna probably be listening to it on the go. But inshallah, Jazakallah khair, guys, and take care.
okay, Assalamu alaikum. Take care.